A happy Wednesday to you and yours for lcpioneers.com Live, presented by PioStream. We are on Facebook Live Tuesday through Friday, 11:30, bringing you student athletes, coaches, members of the Lewis and Clark community, and alumni. Conversations with the guests each episode and archived, available online at youtube.com/lcpios. Happy summer and into the second week of June, and we are into week 11 of our show. It's been a lot of fun staying connected with you from afar. Hi there, I'm Ryan Goff. I am the play-by-play voice and director of athletic communications for Lewis and Clark, the Pioneers, out of Portland, Oregon. We are an NCAA Division III institution competing in the Northwest Conference. So Lewis and Clark goes up against four other schools from throughout Northwest Oregon, four others from throughout the state of Washington, and then with 430 institutions nationwide competing in NCAA Division III, an opportunity for our student athletes to go across the country and have an opportunity to compete. Lewis and Clark also sports a very robust overseas study program as well. So our students and student athletes like chances to go all over the world and explore with experiential liberal arts education. Today, we are going to talk with an alumnus of the class of 2005, a former women's rower for Lewis and Clark. Abby Broughton will join us, and we'll talk to her about both how rowing impacted her life while at Lewis and Clark, but also after Lewis and Clark, including appearances in world championships. So we're excited to talk to her about her success with the sport and beyond, coming up in just a few moments. Invite you to connect with the show. You can through our social media, in the Facebook Live comments below, certainly, as well as via email at sports@lclark.edu. You can also connect with us on our social media platforms, Twitter and Instagram, at LC Pioneers, on both of those as well. Mention that our show is available as a playlist on YouTube. That address, youtube.com/lcpios. And then you just click on the playlist link and you can see all of our past shows dating back to the last day of March. So we've been able to have about 4 episodes a week every single week since then, and it's been really fun to connect with everyone from afar. And then certainly to encourage you to go to our website, lcpioneers.com. A couple of things that are newer on there. We just announced our women's soccer incoming class for 2020-21. Head coach Jim Tersey, as he moves into his 11th year as the head coach of Pioneers Soccer, has welcomed in those student athletes. And then also information about Mark Petrock, longtime head athletic trainer for Lewis and Clark, now named the permanent director of physical education and athletics. You can find both of those stories at lcpioneers.com. So with that, let's get to our guest for today, a class of 2005 graduate of women's rowing. We welcome Abby Broughton to the show on lcpioneers.com Live. Abby, I appreciate you taking the time to join us today, an opportunity to get a chance to reconnect with one of our alumni. You're coming to us from Idaho. I'm curious,
Yeah.
In the first place, what brought you to Lewis and Clark? Why was that the place that you ended up going collegially?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. And gosh, I wasn't really sure where I wanted to go for college. But where I'm from in Idaho, where I actually am now, it's a really small town. And I wasn't ready to go all the way back to the East Coast. I hadn't really explored, Oregon, Washington. I'd heard amazing things about Portland. Went and looked at the campus and fell in love with it and decided, okay, Lewis and Clark. I wanted a liberal arts school, and I was planning to be a music major, so it seemed like a great place to land.
Yeah, and I'm curious, you had an atypical way in terms of becoming a collegiate student athlete, because as I just mentioned, for example, we have on our website our incoming class of women's soccer recruits, right? Describe your journey to getting to be a member of the rowing program at Lewis and Clark.
Yeah, well, I didn't come to college to be an athlete. I was an athlete my whole life growing up, but I was really interested in music and wanted to pursue a music major. Um, but I just found the transition to college was a little hard for me as a freshman. It's just such a different experience from growing up in small town Idaho, a small high school, and so I was close with my advisor, Nora Beck, who's still there, and I'm still in touch with her. she told me, Abby, the thing that got me through college, and I really recommend, is do a sport. um, she's like, it got me through, and why not try rowing? And I actually, at the time, I had someone who lived in my dorm who was like getting up at 4:30 in the morning, and he would like get home from crew practice at 8 in the morning, and I'd just be like stumbling out of out of my room. And I was like, "What have you been doing?" He's like, "Crew, you got to try it." So, all that kind of came together, and I went to the head coach of the crew team then, because this was before Sam Taylor became the coach. He was actually coaching Puget Sound, so he was like our rival. um, so anyway, I went to the coach at the time, and she was like, we're not taking walk-ons. Come back next year. So I kind of was like, all right, I'm just gonna, get through this year, come back in the fall and go for rowing. So, and then I did. I mean, from the moment I took that first stroke, I was just hooked.
Yeah, and it's an interesting journey because you bring up Nora's name, right? And Nora has been heavily involved in supporting athletics at Lewis and Clark, including being on our PioStream broadcast with me and Tim Black. And
All
she
right.
talks so highly, like you said, about her collegiate athletics experience as a Columbia Hall of Famer for women's basketball.
Yeah.
And what did it take in terms of going from joining the crew team and then maybe transitioning more to excelling on the crew team? I mean, why do you think that you had some of the success you were able to have, maybe being a natural in the boat, if you will?
Um. Gosh. Well, I had worked hard in sports, up until college. But it wasn't until I found rowing that I just had never been that motivated um, by something in my life, and it was like the team environment. I had amazing coaches who were really supportive, um, and I learned not only how to manage my time. Like I think there was this way where having to get up at 4:30 in the morning. Um, and still get all your schoolwork done, get to all your classes, get enough sleep, which was iffy sometimes, but um, actually being on the crew team helped me manage my time better, and I think that made it so that I could be a better student and just enjoy college more. Um, but yeah, it taught me how to work harder than I ever had before, and just through the right kind of encouragement from my coaches, and just being so motivated, that's what kind of fueled me to want to pursue rowing after college.
She's Abby Broughton joining us on lcpioneers.com live, class of 2005 graduate from women's rowing and a three-time competitor at the World Championships. And I want to ask you about your post Lewis and Clark career as a rower, but we talk a lot as administrators and coaches at an NCAA institution about some of the impact that student athletes learn, some skills that they learn as a student athlete.
Mm-hmm.
You refer to your coaches in some of those moments as far as leadership and encouragement. How else, or even elaborate on those two qualities. How did it really have a lasting impact on you, even post collegiate rowing career?
Yeah, I mean, rowing is such an incredible sport in that you just have to want it so bad. Um, and I mean, all sports are like that, but there's something about rowing that it's painful, and like you you're racing and it's like painful and it's hard and you can't wait to finish, and then you finish and you're like, that was amazing, I want to do it again. um, so I think that really translates to, I mean, anything I've taken on. And I think especially like starting as a novice rower in college, a lot of sports, I always felt like I had to start early, to get far in a sport. But with rowing, it's like it was so cool to just be able to walk onto the team, work hard, and realize like, wow, okay, I can take this somewhere, and that translates to so many things in life. So,
So describe, post Lewis and Clark. What were some of the the ways that rowing stuck with you, and maybe even describe that journey, into being, a world championship caliber rower. Kind of where did it start, and then, what specific events and moments do you remember post Lewis and Clark?
Yeah. Well, I guess I would say it started in the LC erg room. I don't know if it's still like down below by the pool, like in the
Yeah,
little,
yeah.
yeah, the little erg dungeon. um, it really kind of started there, because with the erg testing, doing 2Ks or 6Ks, that's when I realized, like, okay, I I have the potential to, get a good score, and that's, I learned that it's definitely not always about the score, the erg score, um, but that kind of helped me. I got my score out there with the help of my coaches, and then at the time in Seattle, there was a really great elite rowing program. And so I was really lucky to get into a summer camp. I think after my junior year, a summer camp in Seattle, and then after my senior year, I got accepted to that elite training program up in Seattle, and so I trained there, and things kind of happened pretty fast. That summer, summer of 2006. So after a full season of training in Seattle, I made the lightweight women's quad for the U.S. team and got to race in England, in London. And yeah, so that was kind of the first um, introduction into that side of the rowing world. um, then after that season, or in fall of 2006, my dad, this is kind of like the sad part of my story. He was in a bad car accident, ended up a quadriplegic. Um, and then just like 3 months after that, my brother died. So it was like, bam, bam, two like of the hardest things to have to deal with in my life. And I kind of had to take a step back from rowing. Um, it was just too much to, deal with all the emotional side of it, be there for my family and train. Um, so I took a couple seasons off, and then in 2008, it was like, okay, I'm ready to have the focus, and I'm just going to go for it with this rowing thing. So um, ended up on the team again, the national team in 2009 in the quad, the lightweight quad. We got a bronze in Poland. And then in 2010, got to race a World Cup in Slovenia, which we won, which was really fun. And that was in the lightweight double. And then raced in New Zealand that fall. And we actually raced in the lightweight double and the quad. Ended up in silver in the quad and eighth in the double. So that's kind of my journey in a.
And you win these medals, and you're competing on the highest stage of rowing, and even hearing you describe it now, it made me think to ask, our rowers tell me all the time about the atmosphere at Wira and the championships down in Sacramento, and kind of
Uh-huh.
that real true full bred regatta, right?
Yeah.
What is it about the atmosphere at a competition, especially because, again, you've experienced at the highest level? Kind of walk us through what it feels like to be at a true, bona fide regatta.
Yeah. Um, I mean, on one hand, it's way different than like a collegiate race. On the other hand, it's just the same. The same kind of importance in that moment, like sitting at the start line. Waiting for the beep to start and or the flag. Um, so being on the world stage like that, it's one of those moments that I'll never forget. Like the first time I raced at Worlds, and you're looking to your right and you see a boat from China, and you're looking from the left and you see a boat from Germany or wherever it is, and um, but that feeling is still the same of sitting on that start line, seeing the flag drop, and just like giving it everything. It really is about the same.
It's an amazing atmosphere. I'm eager. I've committed to Coach Taylor that at some point I am going to go to a Wira Championship so I can experience it firsthand. You know,
Yeah,
we're talking to Abby
fun.
Broughton on lcpioneers.com live, 2005 graduate of the Lewis and Clark rowing program. Our show live Tuesday through Friday, 11:30 in the morning on Facebook and archived at youtube.com/lcpios. Kind of catch us up now, you know, where you are, and, you know, post rowing too, you know, did athletics or having kind of that competitive nature stay with you? Did you pivot to anything else after rowing?
Yeah. Well, as you can imagine, like training on that level and having rowed, since my sophomore year of college, um, when I realized it was time to transition to like whatever the next phase was, it was, hard because here I am, this identity as an athlete, a full time athlete, and so what I found is that like finding an finding a new sport was what kind of kept me excited, and I found adventure racing, like orienteering, and I did that for a while, pretty competitively, and yeah, I just kept going with sports, and landed back in my hometown, which is the beautiful part of Idaho near Yellowstone and the Tetons, and um, just that love of outdoors, fuels me every day.
Well, and let's elaborate too on that. I mean, you're in a beautiful part of the Pacific Northwest, kind of, you know, I guess shifting over to the Rocky Mountain region, right? And I grew up in a beautiful part of Montana near Glacier Park, and I always think about, you know, the description that I share about contrasting that part of Montana to where I live now in Western Oregon. What is it about the Pacific Northwest for you? You know, the Rocky Mountain region and the opportunity to have so much access to outdoor life.
Yeah, I mean, it really is part of who I am, is being in the mountains, and I mean that is part of the reason why I chose Lewis and Clark, was because I wanted that city experience. I hadn't grown up in a city at all, but I wanted the access to the outdoors and the mountains, and um, just this morning there was a moose in my yard, so it's just I just love that, living right, close to nature, and it fills me up.
Well, I know that that's a big reason too that we have lots of our students, you know, pick Lewis and Clark as access to a metropolitan area while being in a campus that feels like it is in the middle of a forest and all that outdoor
Hmm.
recreation. In fact, I think about a week ago we had Tom Lehman join us from College Outdoors just to talk about all of the college outdoor impact on our students too. So that's something you could look back at with our YouTube channel as well. Abby,
Nice.
it's really fun to talk to you and hear you know, how Lewis and Clark, you know, and specifically one moment, you know, I love that story about Nora saying, "Hey, get involved with collegiate athletics," and you kind of never looked back
Yeah.
for a decade. That was a really powerful story. Please stay in touch. If
Yeah.
you get back to campus, we'd love to see you and possibly have you on the show again.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was fun and a blast from the past to think about all that.
Thank you so much. That's Abby Broughton joining us on lcpioneers.com live. Yeah, fun conversation. And with the goal of this program to not only keep in touch with current student athletes, but former student athletes as well. You know, I shared this with Abby before we got on the air. You know, if you have somebody who that you remember from your time at Lewis and Clark as a student athlete that you definitely think we should be in touch with. You know, I'd love to know sports@lclark.edu. You can always comment on any of our shows or on LC Pioneers through Twitter and Instagram. But yeah, that's a perfect story of, you know, getting the access to the city. You know, that's one of the big reasons that I share about why I love Western Oregon is you have population in addition to all of this outdoor wonder, including an ocean just an hour and a half to the west of Portland. So that's pretty neat too, in addition to Mount Hood and all the mountain-based recreation. So a big thanks to Abby for joining us and sharing that story and just even, you know, attesting to the fact that, you know, being a collegiate student athlete is really what helped her through her time as a collegiate student. That was pretty powerful, like I said. Um, no show tomorrow. We're going to take a break tomorrow. May air a replay, but also just may wait till Friday when we have our final conversation of the week. Sammy Benbow will join us. He's a rising senior for Lewis and Clark baseball. Have a chance to talk to him about losing the past season and kind of what's ahead for the program now entering the next season with head coach Matt Kozdurka leading the program. We don't actually have any of our guests scheduled for next week, but certainly working on that. And again, if you have a recommendation, we would love to know. sports@lclark.edu. So big thanks to Abby for joining us on today's show. Invite you to check out lcpioneers.com for the latest news. And until we talk to you again on Friday, big thanks to Abby. Big thanks to you for having fun with us. I'm Ryan Goff. We'll talk to you again with Sammy Benbow on Friday of Lewis and Clark Baseball. You can watch us live Tuesday through Friday, 11:30 on Facebook and archived at youtube.com/lcpios with a playlist from all the way back to the last day of March. Until then, goodbye, everybody. Thanks for watching.
I'm Ann Bentley. I'm an associate professor of chemistry, and in this research group, I supervise the 2 students working in the Rogers program this summer in our lab. The brown bag experience is a good chance for students to get experience presenting their work that they've done in the lab, especially to an audience that's not technical.
What's intriguing about the brown bag experience is it incorporates all of the Rogers program. So I'm able to hear people in the psychology department and what research they're doing, but it also gives us the opportunity to share our research with the greater science community at Lewis and Clark. And for incoming students, the summer program is really beneficial for getting opportunity in research. So I've had the opportunity for research in the past, but other students may not have the same opportunities. So it's nice to work in a professional lab setting and potentially have the opportunity to publish a paper, which looks really good moving on into doing professional research out in the field.
The students grow a lot during the summer in their ability to learn the techniques and apply the techniques and suggest their own ideas for what could come next and interpret their data. It's just a big, usually if they haven't done research before, they learn a lot in that short period of time.
My favorite spot on campus is like right outside the Dovecote, little benches, and there's flowers growing there, and you can get a little coffee at the Dovecote and sit there.
My favorite spot on campus is definitely the weight room. I get that everybody loves like the gardens or the manor house, but our facilities for athletics here are actually amazing too, and the weight room is definitely my favorite spot.
My favorite spot on campus would either be the glade outside of the athletic facilities or South Campus.
What is my favorite spot on campus? I really like the back porch of the manor house. It looks out on Mount Hood, and on a clear day, it's super beautiful just to sit around with friends.